Hi there, my name is Aaron Lanchman. I'm a professor of electrical and computer engineering at Georgia Tech. In this video, I would like to talk about how I use Basecamp with my vertically integrated projects team. The vertically integrated projects program at Georgia Tech, and actually there are VIP programs at a bunch of other universities, are something like startups that don't have to get venture capital or otherwise make money. Or I like to think about mine as sort of a hippie commune co-op, kind of like Andy Warhol's factory if the Velvet Underground were really into old computers. VIP teams are vertically integrated in that you'll have sophomores and juniors and seniors, potentially from a wide variety of different majors, and students can sign up for it over multiple semesters, maybe taking a semester off if they have a co-op at NVIDIA or Tesla one of the semesters. Ideally, you'll have some students who have been in the program something like 3 semesters, and they'll move on to other things, and in their last semester, they'll help bring on board the students who are just joining the project. So it's more like how things happen in a real company or a real government laboratory. One nice thing about this is you don't have the clock of starting something at the beginning of the semester and having to finish it by the end of the semester. I find when I advise senior design teams, that leads me to be very conservative in what I suggest they can do because I have to be sure that they can finish it in a semester. With VIP, you can start a project and be in the ramp-up period for a while and maybe have the semester end and a new semester start before it really takes off. And if it's a big project that requires that amount of ramp-up, that's fine. And if you and your students decide a certain project isn't working out, that's fine. You can it, and all those students can pivot to working on something else. The main thing I tell my students is that hopefully we've learned some interesting things in the meantime. So this video serves several purposes. It's primarily a way of introducing my own students to Basecamp, and particularly how we use it in VIP, but I'm hoping that other people will see this and get ideas about how they can use Basecamp. I'm not being paid by Basecamp to shill for Basecamp. I just really like their product. Basecamp is in the same class as Trello and Asana and Workday and Monday.com and a bunch of other project management team communication apps. It's not a heavyweight tool like Microsoft Project. It doesn't have things like Gantt charts or time tracking or financial management. So it's less of a big project management tool and more of a team communication tool. So I'm running the desktop app, and it does have a web version, but I find it better to use the app because then you're not being distracted by the 100 other tabs that are up on your browser. They also have a phone app. Your main homepage will have your headquarters, and it will have teams, and it will have projects. The only difference between teams and projects, and for that matter, your headquarters, is conceptual. They all have the same kinds of functionality. Let me switch from the card view to the list view for both the teams and the projects. Don't read anything particularly special into that use of the word cards. These aren't fancy Kanban cards like in Trello. The way I use teams is sort of as general interest discussion groups. So music and gaming and retro computing aren't specific projects per se. Ideally, people have discussions in these teams and they brainstorm, and then they come up with project ideas that become projects. Now, some of these projects are a little more generic. For instance, this project on Juice isn't really about a specific project. It's more like a discussion forum for anyone using Juice to swap stories and exchange ideas. Similarly, it's not like there's one project with Super Collider. This is just a general discussion area for people using Super Collider on whatever their project is. I might turn things like this into teams eventually. I think for a company, the intent is that teams would be stuff like marketing, engineering, IT, accounting, management. And then the projects at a place like Apple might be iPhone, MacBooks, Apple TV Plus Originals, whatever. But really, you can make the team project distinction be whatever you want because there's no difference in the functionality between them. So let's take a look at one of these projects. Let's look at the synthesizer education project. Your headquarters, your teams, your projects will all have 6 features. There's the campfire, which is basically a chat mechanism. So this is for kind of more informal discussions. Hey, how's it going? Hey, I saw this cool thing. And this basically is sort of like Slack or Discord. Remember, each project and team, and for that matter, the headquarters, has its own separate campfire. Okay, let's go back to the synthesizer education project. So there's also a set of to-dos, and this is one of Basecamp's most complicated features. You can't just set up a to-do. You have to create a to-do list, new to-do list. You can give it a description with whatever. If needed, you can attach a file. Actually, let me not attach a file. One nice thing about Basecamp is that this text box interface is consistent, and it has some nice features like I can use an @ sign and pull up folks, and then I could use a letter to make that more specific. And then I can say, okay, I selected a particular person. And now when I post this, that person that I use the @ symbol to select them will get a notification. And they'll get a notification even if they have the option to receive notifications on this project or team turned off. And when I use that @ it only shows people who are on that particular project or that particular team. Okay, so let's add this list. Here's a new list of to-dos, and I can start adding some to-dos in it. So I'm going to say something like, buy the unobtainium. And I could assign that to somebody. So you can create a to-do and assign it to somebody else, which is cool. So let's assign this to myself. And then you can also set up who gets notified when this is done. In this case, I might put in the name of a student that I know might be waiting on those parts. So this will at least let them know that I've actually gotten around to ordering the unobtainium. I can set a due date, and it will start reminding you as part of your Hey notifications that I'll talk about later. And remember that in the to-do list, we could add a file, and you could also add some additional notes and a file here. So you can go to town with this. So in this case, I'm going to add a to-do, and now I can add some more to-dos, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to do that right now here. Let's say cancel. So now we only have one to-do in this to-do list. Now I can add another one, another to-do, do all of that stuff. Let me not bother here. And now I should be able to go to my to-do list, and there's my new to-do list. Let's go check that out again. You can add a to-do to it here, or you could actually add it out here. You don't have to go into the list to add a to-do. Let me go in here anyway. One particularly nice thing about Basecamp is the commenting feature that basically lets you comment on everything. So somebody could set up a to-do list, say that certain people will be informed if these tasks are complete. When you complete a task, you can check it off, and then the person will get a notification. I can uncheck it if I actually checked it by accident, whatever. And of course, you can go in and you can delete to-do lists and move them around and what have you. And you can comment on the to-do list. So somebody else on the project or the team, whatever it is, it doesn't have to be the person who made the to-do. It doesn't have to be the people who are informed. They could come in and say, hey, I'm glad I'm not doing that task. It sounds really difficult. And then you could also add a file as part of your comment. And then somebody else could respond to this, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you could have a whole discussion take place just for this to-do list. So I added a comment. Another thing I'll mention just while I'm here is you can also give people boosts on things you like. These are like the likes on Facebook or whatever. The nice thing about them is that basically, if I understand it right, if I remember this correctly, the only person who gets the notification on this is the person you're boosting. And in this case, I'm boosting myself, which is kind of like liking yourself on Facebook, or YouTube, which of course is bad form. But let me just demonstrate this. So you don't have a lot of letters to type in here. So this is not meant to actually convey information. This is just meant to convey that you're happy about something. You can pick an emoji. I can pick that emoji. Let's pick some more emojis. What about this emoji? I have some eyeball emojis. Anyway, so if I don't want to have that boost, I can get rid of it. Here, I've sent a boost. So notifications for boost just go to the person that you want to boost. All the other people that are part of this to-do list don't see that, so it doesn't clutter up their feed. All right, let me delete that. There we go. Another thing I can do on the to-do list is I can change who gets notified. So if I think, oh, there's some other people who should be looped into the discussion here, then I can go in and add people accordingly. So that's nice. And if somebody added you as a subscriber and you decide you don't want to get those notifications, hey, you can unsubscribe yourself. Let's see, can I do the same thing on the to-dos? Yeah, there's a discussion here. So I can discuss the to-do itself and not just the to-do list. Remember, you can't just have a to-do by itself. It has to be part of a list. And you can add or remove who you want to be notified when people contribute to the discussion on this. And if somebody added you on this particular to-do and you don't like that, you can unsubscribe yourself. So at the level of both the to-do list and the to-dos that make up that to-do list, you have a good amount of flexibility of what you want to be informed about. Now, everybody on the project or the team can see this list, but only the people who are listed as subscribers will get active notifications. They can always go in and see the list on their own if somebody points it out to them. Basecamp's design puts a lot of emphasis on you being able to select what information you want to be actively notified about, to try to keep the deluge of information to a minimum. Okay, I think that's enough about to-dos for now. The other section I have in here is docs and files. Each project and team and the headquarters itself has a separate docs and files section. So you can have docs and files sitting here by themselves. You can organize them into folders. So you can go in and look at particular files. You can put in basically text edit files, rich text that you can go in and edit. Yes, I'm part of this project, so I can edit. I'm not actually going to edit it now. And all of your usual tools work in here. So I can @ people, etc., etc., etc. Notice that this file in the docs and files section has this similar interface. I can add a comment to the file. I can change who gets a notification when somebody comments on that file. If I added somebody and they don't want to be notified anymore, they could unsubscribe themselves. If somebody looks at this file and said, hey, there's a lot of interesting discussion here I'm not part of, they can go ahead and comment. But if they want to keep updated on it, they could say, oh, subscribe me, and now I'll get a notification when somebody comments on this. So you can comment on individual files just the same way that you can comment on a to-do. It's consistent throughout Basecamp. Let me back out here a bit. I can rearrange the way these are presented, or I can sort them in different fashions. If I want to upload a document, I can just drag and drop onto the page here. So if I want to put some notes here already, I'll say this is just a demo of uploading files to docs and files. I could even attach a file to this note on this file. So it's like Russian nesting dolls. It's files all the way down. Notice again, I can say when I post this, don't notify anyone, or I can notify some people on the spot so I don't have to send a separate note to somebody saying, hey, I uploaded the file. I'm doing something like that. I probably want to say select no one and then pick the particular person I want to notify. Let's go ahead and upload this file. Post to the project, right? Okay, so I've posted that to the project. Let's go back to Docs and Files. So here I have just that raw file sitting around. Where is it actually? It's sitting right here. So I can rearrange these if I want. Let me add a couple other files. So I'm going to drag and drop more demonstration. Let's see, are these all uploaded yet? Okay, post to the project. So now this may be a little cluttered. So I can make a new folder. So organization example. So here I've created a new folder. I can drag things into that folder. Actually, can I make a new folder and put it in another folder? Subfolder. Does this work? Let's see, I'm going to drag this into here. Yeah, so here's a subfolder. So subfolders work. I could probably put subfolders in subfolders. Now, I was dragging and dropping those files from elsewhere on my desktop. I have this set up with a recording area that's smaller than my actual screen. So I was dragging and dropping from something that was off screen. Let's say new upload file. So another option is to upload a file from here. Let's see what else I can do here. I can also create one of these sort of generic text things, editable text. So this is kind of, I guess, like wiki functionality. So people can edit this document collaboratively inside Basecamp without having to use Google Docs or whatever. Similar sort of notification structure. Let's see, I can post this doc. So now I have this editable text document. If I want to try to organize things a bit, I can change colors. So let's make that one yellow. We can make this one green to try to provide some organization. Or I can change that. I can just change that back to regular. Doop. I can put that in there. Now that's sitting in the folder. There is a way to archive things that they're sort of off the main view. You can get them back by unarchiving things, or here I'll put it in the trash to get rid of it. Something like a PDF you can view in the browser. Most images you can view. And when I say browser, I mean this Basecamp app. Or even if you're looking at Basecamp on the web, that works too. Go here, and let's see, what else can I do? I can move it. So I can move it to another folder. Never mind. I can put it in the trash. There we go. And this entire folder I want to get rid of. So this organization example, so let's see what happens if I say put in trash. Okay, that trashed the whole thing, and it looked like it also trashed everything that was inside it as well. So let's see, did I leave this the way I found it? I think I did. One nice feature is you can link to stuff on Google Docs. So for instance, this particular project keeps a list of inventory on the Google Doc, and we can say view on Google and do all the Google Doc editing stuff here. If you want, you can link this yourself. So I could say new. Oh, it also has some integrations with Dropbox, Box, and OneDrive. Do we go to our Google Drive? I think you may have to create it in Google Docs first, and then you can link it up. One thing you want to be careful with is that this is dependent on that external Google Docs functionality. So if you have something here that's important, but then 5 years down the line, the student that created it is going through their Google Docs and trying to just clean up old stuff they're not using anymore, they might accidentally blitz this if you still need it. So that's something to think about. Apparently, Basecamp does have an API, so you can create your own extensions to Basecamp and create your own integrations if you're into that kind of thing. And lots of folks have created integrations that you can download and use, I guess. I haven't actually tried out any of them, so I don't know how to do that yet. In the Retrofuturistic Hardware HQ, I have a doc and files that's specifically a checkout of who has what hardware. I found that to be very important on the VIP team, to keep track of who has what, as various bits of equipment move between our official shared storage space and their dorm room or their apartment or their locker in the makerspace or whatever. So for variety, let's go to the Atari 7800 development project and look at one of the other tools available in all of the teams and projects, and that's the message board. If there are informal conversations happening on Campfire that get solidified a little bit in terms of people getting some ideas together, I always encourage my students to move that discussion over to the message board and post a message to have a clearer threaded communication record of what they're talking about. Because otherwise on the campfire chat, if you have multiple conversations going on at once, it can become confusing. So you can make a new post. You can say whatever it is that you wanted to post. You can attach files, as we've talked about before. You can also drag and drop files, I believe. Let me actually make sure that works. Let's drag and drop the COVID-19 numbers at the University of Georgia and see how they're doing. Oh, not doing so great. Look at that. Best of luck to everybody. So you can decide on who you want to receive a notification when you post this message. Again, everybody on the particular team or project can read it if they go in and look at messages. This is just letting you decide who you really want to bother about it. So if you subscribe someone to a particular message that you've posted, and later they decide they don't want to get notifications on it, they can unsubscribe themselves. Similarly, if somebody pops into a conversation and decides they want to subscribe themselves to it and get notifications, they can do that. And as with everything else, if you want to make a comment of some sort, you can also attach files. Let me pop back up to the home menu here and look at the Retrofuturistic Hardware HQ. So here you'll see making a bunch of announcements, as I usually would at the start of the semester. One thing I want to mention is that you see these little icons here. When you create a new message, you can select one of these, and you can actually change these around. You can add categories and assign emojis to them. For the purposes of my VIP team, announcements are serious things that must be read. Whereas if somebody misses an FYI, it's not the end of the world. I might ask a question if I'm doing a bit of research along the lines of, hey, have any of you used a source control system other than Git, or has Git completely taken over? And I want to emphasize that these are not just for me. Students can post FYIs and announcements and ask questions and are encouraged to do so. Pitch is very specific. This is when you have a project idea and you are looking for other people who are interested in it. And if you get a critical mass of students who are interested in it and I give it the thumbs up, then you should go and form a project on it. And I want to emphasize that you don't need an administrator to form a project. Anybody can form a project and start that up. Pitches are usually actually pitched in either the music or the gaming retro computing team. Sometimes you might have a project that crosses between both categories, in which case you might post that pitch in the full Retrofuturistic Hardware HQ. The last category in the message board is heartbeats. Heartbeats are something that the Basecamp developers came up with. We historically haven't used them in my VIP team, but I would like to start using them. The general idea is that you will have different teams, and here I mean actual teams, not the technical interest group discussions that I have in the quote-unquote teams on Basecamp. You know, teams working on different projects, and they're often somewhat siloed, and it would be nice to have a way for different teams to just kind of check in with each other whenever they make major progress. So here's the idea. If you're working on a music project, or if you're working on a gaming/retro computing project, when your particular project has made a lot of progress on something and you would like to share it with the rest of the people who are working on music or the rest of the people who are working on gaming, you could post a heartbeat announcement to that gaming retro computing team or to the music team. Or if you have something that you would like the entire Retrofuturistic Hardware VIP team to know about, some advancement that you've made, some solid piece of progress, you might want to actually post a heartbeat to the entire group on the Retrofuturistic Hardware HQ. So I would encourage everyone to go to the Signal V Noise blog that the Basecamp developers run and read this post, the tool we built to keep everyone in the loop at Basecamp. There's a lot of really good ideas in here. Okay, let's head back home. So all of the teams and projects and the main HQ have a schedule feature, and this does all of your usual calendar stuff. So let me put something on the calendar here. We'll add an event, and this will be the initial kickoff meeting. So let me call this the introductory meeting, and this is an all hands on deck meeting. When I decide who to send this to, let me choose who to notify. I haven't mentioned this before. I'll mention it again a little bit later, but everybody who's signed up for credit, I include in the Retrofuturistic hardware category, and I want all of those. But everyone else, which is everyone else, I don't want to inform. So these are people who have either graduated or they're otherwise moved on. So I'll say save changes. This is going to be Tuesday, 7:30 p.m. No, sorry, it starts at 6:30 p.m. and then it ends at 7:30 p.m. We'll generally meet on Tuesdays at 6:30, but I'll generally be meeting with subsets of the entire group. So for those cases, instead of putting the meeting here and bugging everyone about it, I might add that meeting to the schedule in one of the projects or perhaps one of the teams. Extra details, usually down here I'll put the Blue Jeans link, given that this is the age of COVID. I'll add that link later offline, off video. And let's see, let me go ahead and post this event. And you can click on various events that are happening, and like everything else, you could potentially comment on them. Let's click on this link. And now people can add comments on it. So they could say something like, sorry, can't make it this week, blah, 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 add attachments, whatever you need to do. A while back, I tried having folks add meeting minutes here, but that just tends to get lost in the shuffle. So if you have a meeting, what you should do is you should actually post your meeting minutes as a message on the message board of either the project or the team, if it's some strange meeting that's about all of music or all of gaming and retro computing, although most of these kinds of things are project specific. Otherwise, I've found that when you post them here, they tend to just get lost. So if you are meeting either in person, if and when it's ever safe to do that again, or on Blue Jeans or Zoom or Skype or whatever, put that on the calendar for whatever your particular team or project is, whatever the most relevant place to post that is. So if the folks working on the Astrocade are meeting to work on the Astrocade, they should post that in the calendar. And that lets me keep track of what teams are meeting and what teams aren't. And if you're not meeting, I can look and see if that's a problem or not, if I should encourage you to meet more, or if you're meeting just the right amount and you may not have to actually meet because you're just discussing things on Campfire and on the message boards, and that's fine. A lot of times, if you communicate via these written mechanisms and you embrace that as a way of thinking clearly, you don't have to schedule meetings on Zoom and Blue Jeans. A lot of those meetings don't have to happen. And if my students wind up having a spontaneous unplanned meeting, don't bother putting that on the schedule after the fact, but do post a rough summary of what you discussed and when and where you had the spontaneous meeting on the message board for your project or team. So the last tool that's available on both the headquarters and all the teams and projects that we haven't talked about yet is the automatic check-ins. So Basecamp uses these for a wide variety of things. Here's some examples that you can be asking at various periodic intervals. I have one basic one that I always run. Other questions I have, I usually post a message to the Retrofuturistic Hardware HQ. And this is, what did you do last week? What do you plan to do this week? I want to emphasize what you did last week did not necessarily have to match what you planned to do that week. Often these things will diverge in different directions. It's really important that you fill this out every week. And if you weren't able to make a lot of progress, that's fine, but you have to fill this out. If you don't fill it out, then I start to worry that you're disappearing, and that's bad. And it's very important on this project, especially because it's so self-directed, that I don't ever get the feeling that I need to hunt you down. Like with the other tools, individual projects and teams can have their own automatic check-ins. I really just have this one for the full Retrofuturistic hardware team. And one of the reasons I do that is that this is a good way for students to keep track of what other students are up to. And if another student looks like they're up to something interesting, then a student may ask if they could join whatever that effort is. You could say something like, let me know if you need help with Eagle, or you could ask a question like, are you using Eagle or Cadence for your PCB layout, etc., etc. So that pretty much covers all of the tools that are in the teams and the projects and the main headquarters. As an aside, for the headquarters and the teams and the projects, you can individually turn off the various tools. I generally don't recommend doing that. And you can turn on a seventh tool that I think is generally off by default that will let you send emails to a special email address and make those emails magically appear inside Basecamp. I haven't found a reason to do that yet, but that might be a feature that we'll experiment with later. I think that's enough for one video. In the second part, we'll look at the features along the top here and take a visit to admin land.